Bahar Behbahani, thank you so much for joining me at Artists Talk, a podcast by KODA. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
The first question I have for you is about your relationship with water and where does that come from?
uh, I guess we drank water the first thing, but something that I think is important and I can remember is the sound of water. It's very prominent cultural thing that always sits somewhere. There's always like a small stream kind of water or a small fountain. Um, and we actually have the expression that sit and listen to water. So it's very much, I think it's the foundation of every Iranian, but particularly in my household, I remember that my father was always, come, sit with me and let's just look at water and listen to water. So uh, that kind of attention to other aspects of water than just this is we're going to shower or this is like what we drink or we don't even pay attention, but it's it's like pretty much in a lot of conversations when you grow up in Iran. It's in literature, water has got a very significant presence. um, in poetry you have um, things like sit next to water and see how it flows, and that's life. Like, so the metaphor of water, the metaphysical aspect of it, the physical aspect of it. And on top of that, you are living in a country that it's kind of arid, so it gets like more precious to pay attention to water, like as a gem.
And how does it keep showing up in your work and especially when it relates to childhood memories?
Um, I cannot specify like how, but I feel like it's always I go back to water somehow. And maybe like the first time that occurred to me that I'm working about water was like when I came actually to New York and surrounded by water. So that feeling um of in the childhood, I come from the city, Tehran, and in the summertime, we go to the sea, to Caspian Sea. So it's very um, special, and it's very it's the road trip that we all take like 4 hours, 5 hours, and we get to the areas of Caspian Sea, and that kind of getting to that source of water um, is it's just like repeating every summer. So it's very important. That smell of the sea, the sand. And it's not necessarily like the beaches that they are here, like in Florida or like in America. It's very specific color. It's kind of like hazy and it's not like those blue, beautiful things. It's kind of grayish, muddy, but they all like um full of joy for a kid that you go to the sea. Unless you are from the south and you go to the Gulf, so that's different, or you go to Kish Island or Peshm Island. Those are like pretty crystal blue, beautiful. But to me, that kind of beauty that it also comes with some sort of melancholic feeling. It's always with me. So when I came to New York and I saw, oh, we are an island, although we call it a city, and one particular work that it was about water. It was in 2011 when I collaborated with artist from Kazakhstan, Almagon Mendibayeva, and we actually both sharing Caspian Sea. And we decided at that time to make a video. It was a two-channel videos, and it's about the power of oil and oil industry, which is not that much known from the Caspian Sea and from the north. It's mostly everyone in the west is focusing on the oil on the south part of Iran, and these days, mostly in media, we hear about that. But it's a very important geopolitical place that I used to be part of the Soviet Union and then got like to the independent countries that um, um, it just made like the whole relationship different. And then, of course, the US presence always there on Caspian Sea. So it's a two-channel videos that it was first time got featured in the Sharjah Biennial in 2013. Um, but then years after, in 2019, I got invited at the Wakefield Garden to do something about Hudson River. And that was my first encounter or experience to just talk about water that is not the water that I know. So it was very it was such a journey for me, literally a journey through water.
I remember I attended one of your conversations recently where you talked about that experience and being surprised when you arrived to New York that water surrounds us and how you tried to collaborate with people around Hudson River, but it turned out people don't have you asked them about their memories with the river, but they didn't have too many memories, turns out. It's not we maybe in New York we take it for granted a little bit that we have so much water around us, but your studio is located close to water. Do you get to see the East River a lot?
Very important for me that I have to see water every day. I walk from home to studio in Dumbo, so I try just to even like just go a little bit out of my way so I can walk. I can start my day in the studio with like walking along it. Not only because of its beauty, it's also uh, I'm always thinking like, what are like the issues? What are like the um this systematic way of like using water or like the infrastructure of like underground. So I'm very much interested when I specifically walk along East River and then it comes to the from Navy Yard. We have like the plant of Con Edison on the water. So that itself, it just has got like a lot of has been um, with some history and issues and leakage and all that. Then it comes like to the flood, and with every rain, you just like observing Dumbo that what happens in such a kind of like a beautification of all the nice buildings and everything, but with one rain, actually nobody is protected and everyone is on the same level of flood. Um, I also am observant about that. Um, yeah, so in terms of the Hudson River, that is like you asked the memory. I always go back to memory when I want to make something new because I think memory is the best um oral history or uh, ephemeral history or some sort of archival material comes from memory that we kind of overlook. Um, and specifically when I go somewhere that I don't know anything or I'm a guest or I'm not like that much aware of the history of it, the best thing is like go to community and ask like, what do you know about it? The the ironic aspect of Hudson River, it was like all people that I was working with, they were like more younger generation. of the Bronx community, Cooney in the Bronx. And so I asked, so what is your memory from Hudson River? And yes, because they're not, I mean, there are like so many immigrant population around, not only from other countries, but from other states. So they had memories of other rivers like Ohio River or, like it was not like specific about Hudson River. And for me, it was very interesting to know like how I can make a work about a river with the community that I'm working with that none of us really have like a personal relationship with this river, except that we know that is loaded with the history of um, how the Europeans came, what happened after that. Is everything that we know as immigrant body, um, with that water, body of water and land is kind of like not very pleasant, right? So it goes back to the history of indigenous people of this country. And then on a contemporary aspects of it is the immigrants always just coming from water, right? And on that Wayfield garden that we were working with the wood uh, program, and they were working with the native plants, and then all conversation came up like, oh, what kind of plants coming also from water, and sometimes unwantedly, right? Sometimes many seeds and plants, they came with the ships of Europeans to this country. So uh, in what kind of extension we call something native or non-native? So that's all goes back to water to me, because the plants, the people, good, and the flow of this, um, and the notion of invasiveness of it, eh, all just goes back to what is the role of water. Sometimes it's makes us closer, and sometimes separates us from each other. So yeah, so that was quite like 7, 8 months of work around that notion.
Yeah, that's very interesting what you were saying about connecting us and separating us, what water and rivers being natural boundaries and borders. Since you mentioned Wave Hill, you had 8 rivers in that installation, and it was one of the many already pools that that you included in your work, either kind of more directly or more poetically, as we can discuss later. But how was it? How did you choose those 8 rivers, and how was it to hold all of them in this one installation?
Um, Eights came always come for me as the form of octagon or hexagon, um, which goes back to the circle. So it's one of the geometric forms that it just goes back um, to the culture, science, history. We see that octagon and hexagon language a lot in the Persian architecture, Persian gardens, and I always just been thinking like, why eight? Why they are these forms? And throughout like many years of research, I also learned that it's those angles of the octagon and hexagon forms, they are preventing the bacteria in the multiplying like bacteria in water. So that goes back to ancestral knowledge, right? So it was fascinating for me to use this and bringing as like a form, as a kind of like a hyperform, to just get like more visibility to this knowledge and not just always talk about like this is like a spiritual like ethnical thing, this is like a form that we see like in like maybe the tiling or all that. No, it's not. It's really every single of these things. If we really go back to see like what was the origin of that, it comes with the wisdom that it goes back to actually the biology or science. So that was my first intent, and it's always been. Uh, Around that, maybe subconsciously I started to talk and interview and to have workshop with the community around that Wayfield project, to see like which rivers people come from, or their grandmother, or they swam in any body of water, or like on that. And those 8 rivers really came up out of those workshops, that how it's important for people that they're living around there. And of course, it was like, okay, what can hold these 8 rivers together as like holds us together, that we're sitting here together. And that was like an 8-sided octagon, that each side of it is the symbol of one of the rivers that came out of like the people that I was working with. Um, and then each side also is wooden and it's hand carved, and those are also carved from the plants that it comes from, those so-called native and non-native plants, and that we also did it with the community together.
Are those the same? Sorry if I'm sorry. And sorry if I'm being ignorant, but are those the same 8 rivers that you later did videos on?
They are no, you're not ignorant. There are like so many age rivers in my works, and I like to look at it as an ongoing age rivers. I Sometimes they are 7 rivers, but then another river come to the conversation. Yes, I did with Asia's Society this series of videos that they are not necessarily the same rivers. I like to look at the rivers as also the kind of like a container that holds water, but also holds memory, but also holds issues and struggles, farewells, wake. So I'm constantly reading about rivers and reaching out to different communities, particularly global south, to see what are those. And when I say global south, is also in the US. It's also like what kind of rivers um they're holding like their weight, and there are many. So I'm doing like different projects that bringing those stories together. I kind of like that these are like a tribute of rivers, that they come together and make like a larger um storytelling. And I really like this non-binary way of bringing things together and see like what are the overlaps or gray areas that we can question or we can think around. The kind of like of course, there are borders within the water, but sometimes these borders are very questionable. And um, like the project that I did in Lahore in Pakistan, it's about Ravi River and Ravi River in Pakistan, but the source of it is in India. And it also goes and passes by Kashmir, but like in Kashmir, the Indian part just like really stopped going there. So you see like how this river is really not only about river, it's about people, it's about power, it's about control, it's about pain, it's about joy. It's it's like the way that Toni Morrison says, like the river always goes back to the way that it was. So river is the memory.
And with that, I wonder, how do you make beauty with difficult topics?
It's very difficult. No, I really I I believe in beauty, and I think that's our savior to bring people together and just for people that like-minded people, I like to make beautiful beauty as like uh, the making honor for them. So that kind of like dignity or integrity goes to it. For the places that I make for bringing people that they dislike sometimes each other or each other's ideas or all that is, I think it's a savior and it makes things easier to accept, to sit there because it's pleasing, as because it's beautiful. People cannot kind of avoid, like they cannot like resist it. So they come to that beauty, but then as soon as they got, they trapped with the difficult issues that I want to get converse around it.
So we've known each other for many, many years now. I feel like, I mean, I know that we met before KODA was founded, and but we started. So I feel like we've been kind of very close over all those years, but we've started collaborating, or we collaborated for the first time in 2022, when we worked together on the exhibition "Water Binds Me to Your Name." And the title of this exhibition is taken from a poem. Could you tell us a bit about that poem and that choice and the exhibition itself?
I look at titles also sometimes as a work itself, not um not all the time I can bring all the concepts. We know like it cannot be uh necessarily be visualized or come like sometimes come as a sound, sometimes come as a title. When we talk about water, particularly, and um, right now, but also like at that time that we had the exhibition 2022, I couldn't see myself to talk about water or land or anything related to the land and soil and not to bring the notion of um, invasion, um, genocide. Um, and I was thinking, how how can I just have an exhibition in such a time? Like what it means. I think I always go back to poetry. That grounds everything. So I guess I ask um, which poem can save me to just survive this time. And Mahmoud Darwish was a poet for the time. That's how I brought the voice of um, the perpetual way of injustice and brutality. And that's such a beautiful but a strong um, verse of poem by him.
And it was a a beautiful exhibition. And one of the very important things that happened that are just so engraved in my memory is in the tea in the garden. That was such a beautiful day. So there's a community garden close to the gallery to Trotter and Shoulder, and you organized the most beautiful gathering. It was such a beautiful sunny day, and just being able to be with people then was just very special. And you do that in your work. And just gathering people together is part of your practice as well, as much as I feel we've had conversations about this in the pandemic, about your walking and what you mentioned, the walk you take to the studio, the memory, but then also bringing people together. And that's what you did just now on May 16th on Governor's Island. You were commissioned by Governor's Island to create this stunning installation. And yeah, please tell us the details of that and how you feel because it just happened and it was a huge undertaking.
Yeah, thank you for being a partner on this with me. It's very invaluable support to have Coda as one of my wings in this project. It was huge. It's one of the largest, as we discussed before. Maybe you could call it social sculpture. I don't know what we call it. For me, it was um, it was a dream that yes, I always want to bring people together to have tea, to have conversation, but it was always like in a small gathering or like a smaller entity. And this time I was dreaming that how can I bring a larger group of people that we kind of together make a beautiful day. And as much as it sounds super simple, it's the most complex, difficult thing to do because I think these societies, and particularly like in the West, but also in New York, the infrastructure of the society doesn't let you to just have this simple gathering. And that's something that some of us are lucky enough to have lived like that. In the media, we all have labels. And the books that is written in the West, you always have particular paragraph that is always repeating the same. Those specific adjectives that comes attached to being an Iranian, being an African, being an immigrant, being a refugee. And it just gets like so singular way of representing us. So I was like, what if like all of us come together? Of course, I couldn't do this by myself. So I needed partners like you. I needed partners like Arte East, another trailblazer nonprofit organization. I needed Asia Contemporary Art Forum and many others to come together and help me that how we can make it then as a project so our work allows us to put like some time and energy in it because it all goes back to capitalism, right? How much time you have, how much energy you have to do something as a side or as a project. So why not to make it as a project? Then if your main project, everybody calls it work and everybody works together. So that was the trick. And I'm so grateful that um, Governor's Island, particularly the curator Juan Pablo Celes, who just came to my studio and after like many times coming and going and having conversation, he just really saw that this is the project, the gathering. And he offered me that you can make a performance and not to call it performance, it's a gathering. And so we were like so aligned of what I wanted to uh, kind of achieve. It's always the first thing that I remember, like I showed him in my studio. Um, he said, "So what is exactly what you want to make? Well, what is the shape of it, or what is it?" and I just uh, have like a book or image there. It's always like there in my studio, of course, Persian gardens and Persian miniature. I brought like this Persian miniature photo, and I said, I want this to be alive. And he said, sounds very interesting. Okay, let's do it. And what I mean by that is, again, it's another label that you see in a museum. Yes, you go to Metropolitan Museum and you see a Persian rug on the wall. First of all, it's vertical on the wall. So you never as a audience, as a museum goer, as a person that doesn't know what it needs. If a rug is on the wall, it never can actually say that what it is if you're not like putting your feet on it. But of course, that's the role of the museum, right? Detach and de-associate things with the origin of that. Again, the Persian rug um, is not just the rug, it's a philosophy of living. It's a very ecological way of like making around, making dying from like the surrounded um, plants, and then all these gathering things, women weaving. It's like so many things within it, the symbols, the fauna and flora that goes to the form of it. Every nuts goes through like different regions, that why they make it with those knots that is different in Kurdistan than Afghanistan, than Morocco, than Iran. Um, so they've been always like a dream for me. Like, how can I just show people that this is the knowledge? This is like a precious kind of like technology there that we don't talk about it. And it's when we talk about like, oh, it's an erasure, it's like erasing the history of some particular people. We don't really think about like how deep is involved, and it's continuous, and it's been for many many years. That is not even occur to you that yes, it's been like the technology that it's part of Africa or part of a so-called Middle East is, it's been erased. Because when we say technology, it doesn't go with the narrative that the West likes to just get associated with only some particular Northern European or North America, right? So, how we can make this, if you call it art and put it in another gallery or another museum, it doesn't do the um justice that you want. So the only way that I could make it, it was make a gallery, get a partner like a fascinating, actually, carpet specialist who has got a rock store in Manhattan. It's called Kemasha. Very generous, also person who, when I talked with him, and he's like, he's got a story selling, of course, these rocks, but with that knowledge that he had, and I went there with another partner, Mariam Qureshi, who just really helped me in this project. We went together with also Dina Azemian from Arte East, um, talk with Hamid Kermanshaw, and just explained to us about all these things. And he sponsored us to, he loaned this 100 years of hand woven rugs, and we trusted only because we all knew that this is important, that people in New York come to that very concentrated place that is, by the way, is an empty, shallow pool on Governor's Island. And you have to take off your shoes, take this effort in this process, you understand what are you seeking on. And when you are in that proximity to that garden that is under your feet, then things just like goes to your mind and you understand a little bit of when we say this is a lifestyle. When I say like we listen to water when we're a kid, then you understand. So this is a way of to look at climate change, not just like um I don't know, recycle. That's also good. But um so yeah, so Dallas Grows a Gathering came to life um as people saw between 1 to 5 p.m. of May 16th, but it really was the fruit of working um, of me and these organizations and individuals partners for at least 6 months. And it was I hope like I can make a kind of make a rubric out of it. Each part of it is you can just make essays or books or people or researcher or like academia, they can talk about it because it's really it wasn't me, it's our ancestors. So when we're talking about the shades that was on top of your head, I was, by the way, made by my mother and her community back in Tehran. That shade, making that shade in that particular way, it's another uh, subject that is a huge subject worth to study and think about it for the heat of today.
And the weather also understood the importance of it because it was just the most stunning possible sunny day.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for doing that for all of us. It felt truly special to be there, and it's definitely engraved in my memory for long, long, long forever. I know that you have exciting time ahead of you, and it's also nice that to kind of maybe distance yourself and process the beautiful gathering that happened. It was truly special, and I'm also excited that you get to spend some time in an extra studio at KODA House this summer. So looking forward to this.
Yes, thank you always for facilitating and giving love and support and space to just really these things can grow and bloom in a way that um, I couldn't really do it without all these supports. One thing that maybe I can add, um, because right now everybody is just like, wow, it was such a huge thing. You're tired, you need rest. Yes, I need rest, but I also like to look at it not as an art project. I like to look at it and brainstorm with all of the partners to see how we can make this as something ongoing, something as um, one of the infrastructure of the city that maybe we can just talk with the city. And especially we are in the very exciting moments of our city, New York City, that might be just like a window that we can get support and make it as a place that it it's for everyone, it's more, for more people. I really like to practice more and more this this exercise that I've been establishing for myself and meditating on that for the last um kind of few years. That is, I think, very non-hierarchy way to just who's the artist, who's the maker, who's the audience, and uh, it's really important for me that this work without the work of my mother and her community in Tehran couldn't beat this. So, who's the artist and what we call something as art is my biggest question these days, and I want to break through it. And I need more people to come together to make this together, not non-binary way of being.
And it's, Juan Pablo's expertise, I feel, and experience is a lot in production of performances and large scale things. So just, I can imagine having his support facilitating something unusual like this must have been great. And yeah, you're always welcome at KODA House as well, and in front of the KODA House as well, with any gathering. Thank you so much, Bahar. Wonderful speaking with you as always, and thank you for sharing about your memories and water gathering and everything else, all the wonderful projects you've been working on over the years.
To be continued.
To be continued.